Apologies, Matt's recording the session, so he just switched on the recording button. So you may have lost me there for a moment, but hopefully I'm back with you. As I was saying, this session is for families. We also have another session on Thursday looking at older people. So some of the information is similar in terms of the universal cost of living support that we have, but we are tailoring each session to the specific group. So this one's on families, the one on Thursday is on older people. As you will see, we are recording this session today. Hopefully that's okay. Matt, do you want to go on to the first slide? And also, Matt, if you're able, can you switch on the interpreters' cameras, please? Sabina, it's Anne Malloy, sorry if I'm pronouncing the names wrong, and Vicky Budgeon. So yes, Sabina, Matt's given them camera access. Oh, we need to also put on Sabina's camera as well. I'm just going to give that a few moments to make sure that we've sorted out that before I start. Okay, right. So, as I said earlier, please note this session is being recorded. Because there are so many people on this webinar, so at the moment we've got over 80 people, we have disabled cameras and microphones. So what we are requesting is if you do have a question, if you pop it in the chat, we will make sure we respond. If we can't respond and it's something that we have to take away, we'll make sure that we take your details and get back to your question. We will have time for a question and answer session at the end of the webinar as well. So what we will then do is then enable you to put your hand up and put your camera on. But whilst we go through the slides, we have disabled cameras and microphones. So don't worry, it's working. It's just because we've disabled it. We're recording the slides. We will be adding them to our cost of living webpage. That's on the Hertfordshire County Council website. Right. I will make a start, like I said, because we haven't got much time. And the first speaker I'm handing over to is Gary Vox, Head of Money Advice Unit. Oh, sorry, this slide is just letting you know who the presenters are today that you'll be hearing from. A copy of the slides will also be on the cost of living website as well. We'll pop that link in the chat later. Okay, so Gary, can I hand over to you, please?
Certainly, thanks very much. And I was asked to do the warm-up slot, which, considering it's really dull, is a bit of a surprise, really. I've got a black square showing on my screen. I don't know if anybody else has got that problem.
Yes, I can see the black square too. I think it's because you're sharing the slides, Gary.
Okay.
I think if Matt shares them, then that gets rid of the problem.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll carry. Matt, you will have to share them then, because otherwise, I think people will lose it. Okay. Cost of living. It's not last year's issue. It's not from 2023, 2022. It's still here. Annual rate of inflation, it was 11.1%. Now it's down to just over 2%. In September, it was 1.7%, and that's significant because it's the September rate of inflation that governs what benefit rates do in April 25. And there was a statistical blip which brought inflation down very fortuitously for the government in September 2024, which has saved them quite a bit of money. So although inflation is no longer high, it's the cumulative effect of rising prices that is the worry, because that 2% is on top of the 11% we've already seen. And the House of Commons Library has done a report that simply shows households that were struggling before the period of high inflation have been the most severely affected. That's hardly earth-shattering news. Next slide, please, Matt. The Office of National Statistics asked people what's the biggest factor for them, and it's the price of food shopping. 92% of the people surveyed said that was their biggest concern. Energy bills closely behind, price of fuel right down to price of childcare at the bottom of the list, which I think is quite a surprise. Rent and mortgages, only 18% of people were particularly worried, but I'll come back to that issue. Next slide, please, Matt. Quite obvious that households who spend more of their income on the basics, food and fuel, and those have gone up most and people feel it the most, will have had the hardest impact. And in fact, for the first time in decades, people's income before housing costs actually fell in 22-23. But it was low-income households who had the biggest fall in their income. Next slide, please, Matt. One of the measures that the government used through the ONS is with what we call material deprivation, looking at basic items. That's everything from bedding, clothes, as well as adequate food, heating, the basics of everyday life. And the numbers who cannot afford those basic items continues to rise. It continues to rise overall. It particularly continues to rise for people who are in food insecure households. We're now up to 11% of the population in 22-23 said that they were insecure in their food supply. They didn't know always at the start of the week whether they would have enough money for food by the end of the week. 3% of the population had used a food bank within the previous 12 months. And the estimate from the Trussell Trust is that there are 10 million people in the UK, if you include the children in the households, who are in that realm of food insecurity. It used to be referred to as food poverty. I think it's now commonly referred to as food insecurity. Next slide, please, Matt. And then we talk about low financial resilience. Have you got savings? Can you get through this? 22% of adults are now borrowing more than they used to do. 27% said they couldn't afford if there was an unexpected but necessary expense of £850. A quarter of the population would struggle with an £850 bill. 14% said that they would have trouble keeping up with their bills and their credit commitments. And 11% had fallen behind or missed a payment in the previous 6 months. Next slide, next click, please, Matt. I mentioned earlier that the rising cost of accommodation, rented accommodation has gone up, private sector particularly. However, it's the mortgage sector where I think we're seeing a delay before there's an impact. A lot of people are on fixed rate mortgages, which will be coming to an end in 25, 26. A lot of people took out interest only mortgages because it was all that they could afford. So there's a tick. I think I would describe it as a ticking time bomb of struggles that owner occupiers will have. And in Hertfordshire, we have quite a high proportion of owner occupiers. So I think there's an underlying issue there for many lower income families who just got on the housing ladder, who I think are really going to be struggling in the next year or two as mortgage rates rise back to where they were probably in the mid-2010s. Okay, next slide, please, Matt. Key points from the budget, as asked to cover, I mentioned the 1.7% benefit rise in April, based on the September inflation rate. The rise for pensioners is going to be 4.1% because of this thing called the triple lock, which means that pensions go up by either 2.5% or the rate of inflation or the rate of wage increases. Wage increases are currently 4.1%. So pensions are going up by 4.1%, more than double what other benefit claimants are going to be getting. Good news is the amount that Universal Credit can deduct, the amount that DWP can deduct from your Universal Credit to clear debts. We've seen the issue of debts rising. That is going to be reduced. It makes a difference to the monthly outgoings. It does mean that their debt takes longer to clear. So it's not as if it's giving money away, but it is lessening the impact on a month-by-month basis, when previously 25% of your monthly payment could be taken to repay debts. Good news for carers that they can now, from April, earn £196 a week before they lose carers allowance. Currently it's 151. It's based on 16 hours a week at minimum wage, so it's hardly generous from that point of view, but it's still a much better than 151. Big emphasis is going to be put onto fraud. 3,000 more fraud staff in the DWP and 180 at HMRC. Draw your own conclusions from that. And we're going to see a new kinship carers allowance put on trial in 10 local authorities to see if it can encourage more family members to come forward instead of using foster care. Next slide, please, Matt. A few things that were under the radar. That everybody's talking about the rise in national insurance. Local councils look as if they're going to be exempt from paying that extra. But charities, voluntary organisations, GP surgeries, care homes don't appear to be exempt. And that's going to add substantially to the costs that charities in particular will be facing on voluntary organisations or anybody who provides services to the local authority, care homes, care providers, etc. Next slide, please. And good news on the Household Support Fund. We were hoping it would be extended for a further year, and it has been. So the Household Support Fund, which was due to end in March the 31st in 25, will now run through to the 31st of March 26, which gives us a bit more security, a bit more time. We hope it will be used to keep people away from high-cost loans and illegal money lenders, if nothing else, because we do have an issue with loan sharks nationally and in Hertfordshire. There's also extra money being put aside to tackle homelessness and rough sleeping. Next slide, please, Matt. Finally, the national living wage. I mean, this was one of the headline figures. And it's a good example of rather clever sleight of hand, actually, because it's the government being very generous with other people's money, because they don't pay the national living wage. It's down to the employers. It's going up and it's brilliant, from £11.44 to £12.21. And for younger workers, the rise is an even better one. Not so great for apprentices, but that key group of 18 to 20-year-olds will get substantially more, 16.3% extra, and the older workers will get a 6.7% increase. So that's great. Next, final slide, I think, on this one, Matt. However, the reality. If you are on 35 hours a week at the minimum wage, then you will earn an extra £28 a week before tax. So it's a substantial rise. But because the previous government froze personal tax allowances, and that hasn't been changed, that 28 goes down to £20 as an after-tax gain. Now, if you're the second earner in a family where you're already above the limit, where you're getting help through the benefit system, that is a £20 a week gain. But if you're trying to raise a family on your own, and you are on national living wage, even full time, that you are likely to be on universal credit to top up your wages. And in those cases, the loss of benefits wipes out a large proportion of the £20 a week after tax gain that you're getting from the rise in the minimum wage. It could bring it down to as little, in some cases. I've given an example there where somebody would gain £9 a week. In fact, it could bring it down to as little as £2.60 a week if you're still on housing benefit and you're getting help with your council tax, which in this example they're not. So it's a very expensive way, affecting many small organisations. It's a very expensive way for them to give people a pay rise of only £3-4 a week, but it's costing the employer round about £47 a week in tax and national insurance, so in wages and national insurance. So the living wage is great news, but not for everybody. And for those particularly still in receipt of universal credit or housing benefit, the gain is mostly wiped out. And that, I think, is my bit done.
Thank you, Gary. I'm now going to hand over to Tina Powell, who's the Senior Commissioning Manager for Children's Services.
Thank you, Christy. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tina Powell. I'm the Senior Commissioning Manager in Early Help within Children's Services Commissioning. And I'm going to just tell you about some of the support we have within Children's Services, within our commission services to help families with the cost of living. So our first one I'm going to tell you about is the family centres. As you can see on the screen here, there's a range of services. The Hertfordshire Family Service is actually a joint service, an integrated service between our partners in health visitors and school nursing in health and our family support service, who we commission in children's services. And they offer this range of services and activities to help support families with children from 0 all the way up to the age of 19 for school nursing. And as you can see, there's a range of support there, including help with debt management and employment, as well as all the other offices services that are on there. Excuse me. Thank you. So working in partnership with all of our services, I'm sure many of you here today will know about the Family Support Service and the Family Centre Service, as they do work in partnership in the community as well. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the next one I want to talk to you about is our Hertfordshire directory. So as part of the Building Life Chances programme, we're supporting to develop the Hearts directory. And it's a gateway to all the information for families and professionals in Hertfordshire. So we have tried to encourage all of our organisations in Hertfordshire to sign up and have their information on there, so it becomes a one-stop shop for people to be able to access and find information. And the kind of information that you can find on there is sort of information that people will need to help them be happy, be part of the community, also for food support, financial support, and also getting support in helping with childcare. All kinds of different support is on there. So that is actually on the cost of living webpage as well, the link direct to that, and you will be able to access all those information by going on to there. Next slide, please, Matt. The Building Life Chances Winter Essentials programme is something that we focused on for the last 2 years. So the first part, the Winter Tangibles stream, that is a provision of offering all kinds of tangibles for families, and it's given directly by professionals who work with families in need, and it can be anything from warm clothing to bedding to essential cooking items, anything like that, to help reduce stress and improve mental health and well-being, and help to free up money for families during the winter, especially with the hard cost of living that we've got at the moment. Last winter, we also offered the winter food vouchers, which we're offering again this year. And last year, we enabled frontline workers to support 1,552 supermarket vouchers to go out to families. That has enabled families to free up their money to pay off other things. So if they're spending the food vouchers on supermarket food, then obviously they can use that money to help clear debts on other things as well. Feedback from families have been things like the pyjamas you've got my son have been really essential this winter. House has been colder than usual this winter. So being able to buy essentials like bedding and pyjamas has really helped. The sensory toys that you got my son have really helped him to regulate better, which has meant that when they're out of the house more, he's able to cope with what's going on outside of the house. And another family has said they really appreciated the air fryer. As they have such a large family, it's helped to keep their costs down. So next slide, please. The next one I'm going to talk to you about now is our park play. So in Hertfordshire, we are just starting to roll this out really now. And what it actually is 2 hours of free community play every Saturday morning in a park or a public space across Hertfordshire. It's active and inclusive games. It's all ages, and it encourages all the generations to play together. It's safe and welcoming and inclusive of everybody and accessible by everybody. And it's run by the community, by volunteers within the community for the community. At the moment, we have got park play running in Welwyn Garden City in Woodhall, in Hemel Hempstead, in South Oxley, in Aycliffe in Borehamwood, and on Jackman's in Letchworth. And we are looking to launch in Broxbourne, Watford, Stevenage and Bishop Stortford in spring next year. Next slide, please. The Household Support Fund. So from the Children's Services point of view, we are offering support through food vouchers for school holiday periods for benefits related school free meal children. So children in receipt of benefits related to free school meals will receive a voucher via their school for £15 in October this year, so October half term and the February half term, and £30 at Christmas. If families are not registered, they can do so via the link on this slide that you should receive afterwards, and that takes them onto the County Council's website. Vouchers are distributed to the following groups of children. So children eligible for 2-year funding, low income, looked after children and or special educational needs. Families with 3 and 4-year-olds in receipt of early years pupil premium. Families with 5 to 16-year-olds who will be eligible because of the benefit status for free school meals. And families with 16 to 17-year-olds in college who would also be eligible for free school meals. The total amounts provided to families with children in food vouchers has varied slightly depending on the available funding through Household Support Fund. And in addition to support through the winter food vouchers, will also be issued to families through our winter tangibles as well that I mentioned, and also through our 0 to 25 scheme and our special guardianship team. Next slide, please. Thank you. And the last one I'm going to talk to you about is our Happy programme. So since 2021, the Department for Education have funded the holiday activity programme, and in Hertfordshire, we've known this as Happy. It's funding for school-aged children from reception through to year 11 inclusive, and whose families, again, are benefit eligible for free school meals. If their parents are in receipt of one of the qualifying benefits and have a claim verified by their school, then they will be able to access the Happy programme. The Happy Programme in Hertfordshire has developed since it's been here, and it has been a really valued support for our families in Hertfordshire over the last few years. The summer programme ran for a total of 24 days over the 5 weeks of the summer holidays this year. 67 providers were actually part of that programme, 212 camps across Hertfordshire, and nearly 46,000 places were offered. A further 2,400 places were provided through the direct award to services for young people as well. So that's for teenagers. And our winter one opens very soon. So we will be booking on the 29th of November. Schools will have that information soon, and they will make sure that they'll be able to give the codes to the families. I think that information should come out this week to all schools. And that's it from me, I think, Matt. Next slide.
Thank you. We've now got Charlotte Blizzard Welsh from Citizens Advice. Charlotte, are you with us?
I am. I'm here. Hi, everyone. So my name's Charlotte, and I'm here representing Citizens Advice, just making sure that the people on this call have an awareness of our service, how we can help the people that you're helping, and then just to give you some top tips to have up your sleeve, in able to support the people that you're helping. So just a little bit of background about Citizens Advice. We provide free, confidential and impartial advice, and our goal is to help everyone to find a way forward, whatever their problem. That doesn't mean that we help with every problem. It just means that we really do work with a network of people, that we make sure that whenever someone comes to us, we can connect them to the right next step. In Hertfordshire, we are made up of 10 local Citizens Advice operating as a Citizens Advice network, but all independently. And we work together to deliver the provision of advice across Hertfordshire. And that really works for us because we can work at a really hyper-local level in each of the districts and boroughs, but come together to deliver services on scale where there's a need across the county. People are coming to us with all sorts of issues. This may be money, benefits, housing, employment problems. They may be facing a crisis, or they may just be looking to explore their options. All of our advice is free, independent and totally confidential. It doesn't matter who we deliver services in partnership with or are funded by. It's a really confidential and safe space for people to talk about their issues holistically. And we operate on a hybrid model of paid staff and volunteers, and they are all trained to the same level, full of up-to-date knowledge and expertise. So whether that's help with benefits, debt, housing or work, they're able to provide the expert advice on the key issues and use our partnerships to connect people to the next steps where necessary. Our main areas of work are benefits, debt, money, employment, consumer and housing, family, law, courts, and level 1 immigration, and watch this space for immigration level 2 coming soon. On the slide, I've just outlined all of the services that are available consistently across Hertfordshire. However, as I said, we're able to adapt our services on a local level. So do look at your local district area Citizens Advice website to see what specific services are offered in each of the different districts. Next slide, please, Matt. So what I wanted to do for you today, because we've had a fantastic overview of the situation from Gary, but what I really wanted to do was kind of give some top tips so that when you're working with residents, you've got some things up your sleeve to be able to give them some quick tips around staying warm. Then I'll also let you know how we can help people in terms of their energy bills. One of our biggest concerns during the cost of living crisis and coming into this winter is that people just make the decision to just completely turn their heating off, and that can have really big implications to families, particularly with health and children. It's never nice to have a cold child, and there are ways for us to avoid it. So some top tips for you to have up your sleeve are: just by turning down a thermostat by 1 degree can help save £105 a year on energy bills. but it's really important to stay safe. So we recommend keeping your heating at around 18 degrees. That's a healthy and comfortable temperature. And our colleagues over on the Hearts Help team have some excellent thermometers, which if anyone's interested in, we can get some sent out to you. And they just make sure that people can keep a view of what their house is sitting at in terms of their temperature. Anything above 22, 24, they're risking high energy bills. It's far too hot. Anything falling under 17 degrees, they really are risking their health. Debunking some myths. So switching the heating off when leaving the house for a few hours. It's far cheaper to reheat than maintain a low heat unless they own a heat pump. Fitting draft proofing strips to windows and doors can save around £45 a year. It can be a quick DIY job, keeping extra heat in the home, and there's lots of energy foundations who will help provide the materials that are needed in order to do that job. So it's definitely something to recommend. And then you might be providing home visits. It's really, really important to recommend that people don't overwork their systems by blocking in, so having sofas in front of their radiators or those nice aesthetically pleasing radiator covers. They get far more value for money by removing those. And then some things that hopefully you all know: by turning off your lights, £7 a year, by washing at 30, £24 a year, making sure the dishwasher's full to run it, and just reducing their running time by 1 run per week can save £12. So there's lots of practical, easy ways that we can go about reducing energy costs and making sure that people can keep their energy on. But the world of energy can be complex, and I don't know how many of you do regularly read your energy bill. There are members of our team who can help. So all of our team members are trained to give energy advice, and that could be on a range of topics, from how to reduce their energy use through behavioural changes, which I've just outlined, how to manage different heating systems to deliver savings. So like I said, switching heating off doesn't work for people with heat pumps. The availabilities of local and national support to get fuel vouchers, dealing with debt and disconnection, metering and billing, pricing and tariffs, energy efficiency, and negotiating payment plans to keep energy on. Also getting people onto the priority services registers. There are lots of ways that Citizens Advice can help. So what I would really recommend is for anyone who's supporting residents and they mention concerns around energy or heating, share these top tips, but then point them our way, and we will definitely be able to help them. Thank you. I think I'm handing over now.
Thank you, Charlotte. Michael, are you next?
Not if that's not my slide, so no.
I was going to say, I don't think that's your slide, is it? I feel like that might be one of Gary's slides. Gary, is it? Are you?
It's me. Yes, I can go now.
Is it you again?
The slides are there. I follow the slides. Click, please, Matt. Yeah. Is it last year's news? I don't know. Let's see exactly what's happening and what can the Money Advice Unit offer. Click, please, Matt. Just keep clicking. These are all the services that we have within the Money Advice Unit. We've got particular projects that work with Macmillan for people with cancer, children with disabilities. We work with people with a brain injury. We also manage the client finance team in adult care services that deals with appointeeships. We have a project working with B3 Living Housing Association over in Hoddesdon. We supply advice line, a daily advice line, training, policy advice, website, fact sheets, all available to professionals across Hertfordshire. And in the last full year, we helped altogether across all of these projects 5,738 households and between them, they gained £24.75 million in extra benefits that they wouldn't have received if it hadn't been for the support from the Money Advice Unit. So that brings a huge amount of money into the county and into people's pockets, more importantly. Next slide, please, Matt. So if you look, when you see the links, when you get the links, you'll see we've even got a YouTube video. We've finally joined the 21st century, and we have our own YouTube video about what we offer. It's very short, it's 2 minutes. We've got training courses in all parts of the benefit system, and you can get the details from the unit. And that includes 2 online courses, which you can do in your own time, take about an hour, one on universal credit and one is an introduction to welfare benefits. They're free, there's no subscription, you just click on the link and you will find them. The link is to hertfordshiregov.uk, where all our fact sheets are. Our fact sheets cover all client groups, but in relation to families, we've got children with disability, a fact sheet on domestic abuse and benefits, obviously universal credit and managed migration as people move on to universal credit, information for young people, information for people who foster and adopt, which is an area I think where people often miss out on benefits information. And we've got a couple of new fact sheets on benefits for parents when a child goes into care and for young people who are in the care system. And we also have a daily advice line, which is for organisations only, not for the general public. I wish we could offer it to the general public. We simply don't have the staff to do so, but we have a brilliant citizen advice network in Hertfordshire who can pick up the general public queries. We will support you and we will give you the information and advice and support you need to handle most of the benefit queries and problems that you might face day to day. Nobody's expecting you to be benefit experts. That's maybe what we are, but certainly we'll do our best to point you in the right direction. Next slide, please. Our concern at the moment are people moving over from what we call the legacy benefits, income support, housing benefit, tax credits, onto universal credit. It's due to be completed pretty much by April of 25. People on ESA maybe a little bit longer. We could be looking at December 25 for them, but generally speaking, it's most of the other benefits, tax credits, housing benefit, etc., will have disappeared. And what we're seeing is a lot of people are leaving it very late. They're given 3 months to make their claim, and then their current benefit will stop unless they've got grounds for getting an extension. And if they miss those 3 months, their benefits will stop. And not only will their benefits stop, but if they do then claim universal credit, they could get less than what they were getting on the previous benefits. Whereas if they claim within the 3 months, they get protection, so at least their benefits don't fall. So it's really important if you've got clients who are getting letters, a migration notice, telling them you have 3 months, it's not an option to say, oh, I'll leave it. They really do need to act. Next slide, please, Matt. Yeah, the jam today and jam tomorrow. We talk about the jams, those who are just about managing, just above the benefit line. Now, some of them will gain from the rise in the national living wage I mentioned earlier. But there are many who are just above minimum wage levels, just above benefit levels. And they are literally 1 or 2 months away from a crisis, a broken cooker, a new exhaust for the car that they need to get to work, puts them at the risk of high cost and even illegal loans. I mentioned loan sharks earlier. We really have to do all we can to keep people away from these high cost lenders. Next slide, please, Matt. And just one very quick case study. We have one worker at the moment who is specialising in providing support to refugees and asylum seekers, predominantly because many of the asylum seekers are given very short notice that their claim has been accepted, and they therefore have to move out of the hotels that they're in at very short notice, sometimes a matter of weeks, and they're left with very little money when that happens. They've got to make benefit claims, get their housing costs sorted, get everything else sorted. And we were helping a family, a woman from Afghanistan with 2 children. She didn't trust us initially because she couldn't believe that what we offered was free. She thought she'd have to pay, and she couldn't work out why the local council would be giving her advice that meant she could get more money. It was something that was beyond her experience, naturally. We don't have a money advice unit branch office yet in Kabul, although if anybody wants to volunteer, I'm sure we could sort something out. Our advisor gained her trust, and we helped to get extra universal credit. She's been able to claim personal independence payment, and we've also plugged her into other resources in Hertfordshire. We're still working with the case because we're still waiting for the outcome of the PIP claim, but we hope it will be very successful, and it's helped her settle in the community without going into crisis. And I think that's it for me, Matt. Next slide.
Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Michael now, who's going to talk to us about the Hertfordshire Welfare Assistance Scheme.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Next slide, please, Matt. The Welfare Assistance Scheme was originally run by the Department for Work and Pensions, and it was devolved to local authorities in 2016. We would normally have a budget of about £140,000 per year for supporting people, and before the cost of living crisis, the highest amount we ever spent was £50,000. It was part of the Hearts Help brand previously. Due to the cost of living crisis, we had to take it away from Hearts Help because it was being inundated with phone calls from people wanting to make claims. We converted it to an online form, and it's branded as the Hertfordshire Welfare Assistance Service, and it's accessed from the cost of living page. If people are digitally excluded, they can still ring Hearts Help up who will help them complete the form. And if they're elderly, they can ask Age UK, who have a dedicated team who will help them complete the form. It doesn't ask anything that wasn't previously asked, and it doesn't ask for any information that wasn't previously asked for either. The criteria is normally that you must be on benefits or have an income that does not exceed £293 per week if you are single, and that's net income, or £482 if you're part of a couple. However, we have pretty much ignored that now, and in order to deal with the just about managings, it's based on how much you have left after everything's gone out at the minute. When the Housing Support Fund ends, we will change that criteria back to the one I just stated. It's an adult service, but we have supported people under the age of 18. And that's we had a young lady who'd been moved out of her house because of domestic violence, and we supported her. She was only 17 years old. We also support people who would normally reside in Hertfordshire but have been rehoused outside the county by their local authorities, e.g. if they are homeless or victims of domestic abuse. Next slide, please, Matt. So it can help with all the things you can see there: food, energy, home and kitchen starter packs. Those are pots and pans for the kitchen, and pillows and duvets, etc., for the home. The vouchers can be cashed in at one of 11 supermarkets and Argos and Currys. You cannot use them at kiosks, so you cannot use them to buy tobacco or petrol. I am informed by the voucher company they can't be used to buy alcohol, but I'm not 100% convinced of that, to be honest. We cut the offer of white goods down to £200 a month instead of a direct replacement. Sorry, £200 instead of a direct replacement for the item of white goods. This was due to DWP wanting us to concentrate on food and energy. Of the 2,611 approved applications so far, 1,598 have been for families. And of that, we've spent £547,429 on those, so an average of £342 per claim, out of the total of £785,000 which we've spent so far this year. It is intended as a one-off support thing, but we do get people that use it more than once. So the first intervention, first time they come in, they will receive their support as long as they meet the criteria. The second time they come into the service, we insist that they take a referral to the CAB to look at their debts and benefits advice. The third time they come in, they must have an active or have attended an active referral. One of the things, unfortunately, we get is that people that make the accept the referral the second time around and then cancel it, but keep the reference number. If they haven't attended the referral, they won't be supported the third time until they do attend the referral. Next slide, please, Matt. So what do applicants need to provide? Proof of ID, preferably photo ID, but we will accept a letter from a professional with a professional email address that says that this is the person that they state they are. Then we ask for things like proof of benefits, finances, proof of their address. And the tenancy agreement is required if they're asking for white goods or starter packs. The reason the tenancy agreement is required is for a starter pack, you need to have moved in within the last 3 months. And for white goods, we like to see the tenancy agreement to make sure that the landlord isn't actually responsible for replacing white goods. Next slide, please, Matt. So we have tightened up the criteria. Initially, at the beginning of the year, we were doing, you could come in every 2 months. We've moved that to every 3 months in order to make the money last for the year. As I said earlier, we changed from a choice of white goods to a contribution of up to £200 towards an item of white goods. And you can use that for anything. So if you had a cooker that was broken, but you decide to replace it with an air fryer, you can purchase an air fryer with those. We don't supply double beds and mattresses anymore. That was a board decision. And we had to put in a broader fraud warning and add in a credit check. After we experienced some unfortunate frauds, we did spot them and they have been dealt with by the Shared Anti-Fraud Service. Next slide, please, Matt. So this just shows you the spend. And if you can just click once more for me, Matt. And the 1st of May is when we introduced the new criteria. That included lowering the energy prices for the summer, because it's obviously longer daylight and less heating required. The energy values have gone up again. They went up again last month, and we would expect to see a reflection in that. We always see a drop in people accessing the service across the summer, and we always see a huge increase come the winter. So we're expecting that to occur. And I think that brings an end to the presentation, Matt.
Thank you. I'm just going to hand over to Matt to talk a little bit about food support.
So yeah, I'll keep this brief. So we have lots of food support available and we are working to map it out a bit better. So like Tina said earlier, the HOTS directory is there and you can search for food support, and hopefully in the near future there'll be lots of food organisations that are available that people can go and access, and it will tell you all the information such as eligibility criteria, and you can go through and shortlist what ones are relevant for your clients, and it's just a really useful tool. So also in terms of food support, we are working on our Hertfordshire community supermarkets, so hopefully we'll be able to send out more information in the future, but initially we're looking at mobile supermarkets, so they go to key areas of need and make sure that there is support. We're not 100% sure on the details, but we will make sure that the information is disseminated once we have progressed further. In addition to that, we also have a food aid network. So this is where food organisations come together and can really discuss what their needs are and how we can support them going forward. So if you know about any food organisations or you're interested in joining, please contact me. My email address is in the slides and we'll get you involved in that group. So we also have cost of living flashcards. These are very much a tool for professionals. So they let you know what the key support is. So you can take it out on visits with you. And if you see a particular need that a client has, you then have the information that you can easily hand to them and say, oh, why don't you contact Citizens Advice? They might be really beneficial for you. We are adapting these quite regularly. So at the moment, this is the generic one that I've got on screen. But we do have specific ones for older people, for example, and we will be looking to branch out into other areas to see where we can really put a focus on. But if you are interested in getting any of these flashcards to your organisations, email addresses on the slide, and we can try and get some out to you. The Hertfordshire directory, so just following on what Tina said earlier, it is a really useful tool and it is continuously being developed. We have key services like food support, childminders, warm spaces, etc., all included on here, and it is being developed, as Tina said. But just a few little tips here. On the main screen, you do have a postcode search, so you can search by area. So if you have a specific client and they live in Stevenage, for example, you can type in Stevenage and it will show up with results in that area rather than results on the other side of the county. And you can go through and shortlist different organisations or services that might be relevant to your clients, just to make sure that you can easily keep track of what support is available. Do you want to take this one, Michael, or should I?
Happy to, Matt. Very quickly, so we have time for some questions and answers at the end. Hearts Help is an independent phone service which was transferred from its previous provider in September of 2023 to a new provider, which is a partnership of the CAB Stevenage and Age UK Hertfordshire. It's an holistic service. Basically, it's no wrong door. If you don't know who to talk to, you just talk to Hearts Help and they will find somebody to resolve your issue.
Thank you very much, everybody. Right, I know that we're running out of time. We only have a few minutes left, but if anybody would like to ask a question, if you raise your hand up, we'll then enable your microphone so that you can ask a question, or alternatively post a question on the chat. I can see that Jackie's asked a question of Tina in the chat, so hopefully Tina will be, oh yeah, Tina's done it. Has anybody got any questions that they would like to ask? Can't see any hands. Like I said, if you want to either post questions in the chat, or again, if you email the community wellbeing email address, which again I've popped on the chat, and if people want any copies of the flashcards, so we have physical copies of the flashcards, then again please do email us and we can get some out to you. Again, if people wanted some of the thermometers, we can get some of them out as well. So do email communitywellbeing@hertfordshire.gov.uk. A few more minutes. I just want to double check that nobody's got a question before I close the webinar. And just to remind colleagues that we have another cost of living webinar on Thursday with a focus on older people, so supporting older people. So in that webinar, we will have information on pension credits, how to apply for pension credits, etc. So if you do have colleagues that you think could benefit from that, again, please let them know about the webinar on Thursday. Everybody's being very quiet, so I will let you all go off and have some lunch. I can see that there has been a question coming on the chat that we'll make sure that we answer. So I've lost it now because there's a lot of thank yous on the chat. So I will make sure we answer that question. Thank you very much, everybody. Again, just to reiterate, if you do have any questions, please do email me, either email me or email the Community Wellbeing email address, and we can get back to you. Hope you found this really helpful, colleagues. Hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.